Reputation and ability to attract business. Well, first of all, if people are being violated, if people are being victimized behind the commercial district, in the commercial district, if people feel intimidated to shop in the commercial district because of rising crime, then of course, you're never going to be able to attract business to Lakewood. Okay, you look at cities with really high crime rates and look at their business development. It's non-existent, okay? We have a track record now over 4 years' time of increasing crime. You look at Giuliani's approach to crime in New York. It was based on something called the broken windows theory. And that theory says that, if you allow for overturned shopping carts and broken windows and spray paint all over buildings, you encourage a certain kind of activity. It sends a message to criminals, this is a place where I can do business. And you talk to business owners who have made serious investments in their properties in Lakewood and had those investments either damaged or have been victimized themselves. It's not going to bring them to Lakewood. High taxes don't bring you to Lakewood. One of the things that we shouldn't have done, that we did, and I voted for it, you have to admit the mistakes that you've made, was reauthorizing the S-Corp tax. We should eliminate the S-Corp tax to attract businesses to Lakewood. We should work to get rid of our reputation as a high-tax community. Taxation is not a route to growth. No elected official in Cuyahoga County seems to understand that. We're the 10th highest tax county in the nation, 3rd highest tax state in the nation. And taxation is not a route to prosperity.
Thank you. Councilman Fitzgerald, in your view, what role should the city administration play in economic development?
There's a couple different roles that the city administration needs to play. The first thing is, if you look at what our competitors are doing, and by competitors I mean other suburbs that are similarly situated that we're competing against, and you look at what some of their strategies have been, and you compare that to what we're doing, that's where I get a little concerned that we're being as aggressive as we need to be. Let me give you some examples. There are cities right now in Cuyahoga County that have had the foresight to set aside funds for property acquisition. Now that doesn't mean eminent domain. What it means is that every year you should set aside a certain portion of your budget so that when there is an opportunity to acquire a parcel, either to combine it for economic development or to provide parking, that opportunity is there. Now, when you're in a tough housing market like we are right now, that presents a certain set of challenges and problems, but it also presents a certain set of opportunities. Because when your property prices fall, that's when there's the opportunity for the city, if it's situated and if it's made the investments in its property acquisition fund, then the city can act. And that's a crucial thing that the city can do. One of the things I disagree with Mayor George is that when he was a council person, he had the foresight to set aside a fund that we funded every year to have property acquisition. Unfortunately, once he became the mayor, that fund has now been zeroed out entirely. The result is that as far as acquiring parking and acquiring new properties for economic development, we've been sorely lacking because the funds simply haven't been made available.
Thank you.
And I first want to thank Ed for the compliment on creating the the land acquisition fund. So maybe some council people were here when we did create that fund, and it is a good idea, and it hasn't been zeroed out. It has $150,000 in it this year, and frankly, that's enough. Not enough. We need to have more money in the land acquisition fund just for that purpose. The relationship between crime and several other factors is absolutely essential to economic development. And that's why, as I stated earlier, first and foremost, and I think everybody here has the same vision. We want to see development. We want to see improvements to the city. That means that we're on the right track. That means that our investments are safe and secure and growing in the right direction. And crime is a factor, and that's why I've said all along and continue to say that safety is the #1 issue in the city, and it always will be. And because of our proximity to Cleveland, safety is always going to be very much on the front burner, and we never ever take it lightly. I've served 20 years as an elected official in Lakewood, and there's not one of those years where we haven't been concerned about safety, and safety hasn't been the top priority. So yes, there is a direct result, correlation.
Thank you, Mayor. 4 years ago, the city was in the midst of a rather large proposal known as the West End Development Project. Were you for or against that project, and why?
I was for the project. I voted for the project. I believed it was a route to prosperity for the city of Lakewood. What I do not believe is stealing people's home in the interest of economic development. I believe that our school board and our library have provided great examples of how you can acquire property. Let's be honest. The West End was a leadership failure. It was a public relations failure. That's where it fell apart. So at the end of the day, what you need is a mayor who's interested in working kindly and compassionately with residents if their homes are potential spots for development, and to try to move the project forward in a way that the community can support it. I hope that once again we'll have an opportunity to do something like that. You know, 4 years ago, for it or against it, it happened. The mayor voted both for and against it several times, okay? Here we are 4 years later though. Where is that retail? Where do you shop for a dish, for a curtain, for a bath towel? Where do you shop for child's shoes? You can't in the city of Lakewood. I think the number that was quoted was $63 million a year was spent outside the city during that project. What is it today? Why are we harnessing that income? If we harness that income through retail, yeah, these aren't big healthcare paying jobs, benefits, but what they are is jobs for teenagers, part-time jobs for individuals, but it's access to retail goods here within the city. We missed an opportunity. Okay, so be it, that's in our past. It's time to move forward, but I think that we have to do some type of critical mass project to get started.
Thank you.
There's a number of factors that go into whether or not a current business that is currently located in Lakewood thrives, and whether it succeeds, and whether or not a new business that's making up its mind decides to come to Lakewood. Let me tell you, and many of you that are business owners know those factors better than I do, but let me talk to you about some of the factors from business owners that I know who are either located here and are looking at locating here. Number one is they want to have affordable commercial office space. One of the things that I agreed on with some of the studies we've done in recent years is that the key to economic growth for the city is developing appropriate commercial office space. A lot of people talk about retail, and retail is fine, but when you talk about what actually is going to benefit the local economy, it's commercial office space, then you get a bigger bang for your buck. So how do we do that? Well, one of our biggest problems, I think, is if you look at our existing storefronts, they're not necessarily conducive to a new business that's moving in. And why is that? Because of space issues and because of parking issues. And again, it goes back to what we've been talking about. Do we have the economic development funds necessary in order to provide either bridge financing, acquire property in order to acquire new parking to make those places viable? And I think we've been lacking in that. And if you look at other suburbs, again, that are similarly situated, they have a master plan that they're not just talking about, but they're implementing as far as making those older commercial spaces viable for new business.
Thank you.
Okay, I understand that some of you in the back are having trouble hearing. There is plenty of seating up here if you want to move up here, and I would ask that the candidates hold the mic a little closer to your mouth. Or use your playground voice. It works, okay? Let's take a little time, come down, there's some seating over in here. Can all of you hear Mr. Vincent?
If Aaron can hear me, we're good. Aaron, you can hear, okay.
Okay,
Mayor George,
thank you.
how, in your view, should Lakewood citizens measure the success of the city planning department?
That's a good question. Our city planning department, as all city departments, sit down with me at the beginning of the year, and we outline our goals for that particular year. And we decide those goals based upon community input, input from the staff, input from other departments. And we benchmark those goals very closely. We follow up at the middle of the year with not only our planning department, but every department in the city, and do progress reports, etc. In addition to that, we have the city staff program, which we learned when I went to Harvard. Dennis Dunn, as a councilman, brought that to the city of Lakewood, and we're busy implementing that program as well. So that program is very much centered around clear goal setting and benchmarking. So as far as specifics for the planning department, we have outlined again goals for the coming year, economic development goals as far as historical restoration goes, programming goals for the CDBG department. There's any number of goals related to those of you that served on the CDBG board related to those projects, expenditure of funds in infrastructure and housing initiatives from our home program to many other programs. So we have any number of benchmarks for the planning department here.
Thank you, Mayor.